Hello and welcome in. It's Game 4, Mountain Brook football taking on Pell City this evening on the road. I'm William Galloway. Coach Chris Yeager is with me. Good to see you, Coach.
Good to see you, William.
2-1 is the stat for Mountain Brook. 2 wins, 1 loss, coming off an overtime win. I can't remember the last time Mountain Brook had an overtime game, and it certainly hadn't been when I've been in the broadcast booth. Do you remember the last one prior to last week?
We had a double overtime against Spain Park, and we won 51-50. I think that was 2017 Hamp Sisson.
Okay, yeah.
Fact, yeah.
That fall, Hamp Sisson went on to play quarterback at Furman University. Put that one on your bingo card. One Furman reference tonight. Coach, great to be with you. Great, very excited about another week. You got your hoodie on. Weather's getting a little bit cooler, but the team's trying to heat up. We're in region play, and we go to Pell City. We'll talk about that game in a moment, but we got to look back at that game last week, overtime 30-27. You and I talked post-game. I talked to some of the players. It wasn't just one play in overtime that won us the game. It was the back and forth, and you've taken the weekend and this part of the week and practice and looked at the tape. So what did the tape tell you about this team and about that win, 3-point win at home?
We knew it was going to be a very good opponent going in. I mean, they've got two Division I defensive ends. They were as good as anybody that we have played or will play. And we also knew they were coming off a loss where some things had sort of come unraveled. But the things we had told our team, everything, all of their mistakes, everything we had seen was fixable for them. And so we were very similar situations. And so, like I said, we knew it was going to be a tough game. But, we just told our guys, the team that plays the hardest, the longest, usually comes out on top. And so I felt like our guys did, when it was – we felt like we were pulling away, and then they would have some plays, we would have some plays. It was just a back and forth game. And then, at the very end of the game, we make the play. Trey Vincent catches the pass, but at the same time, the defense, to hold them to a field goal in overtime really gives the offense an advantage. So again, it was a team effort. It was a back and forth. It was something that we needed. We need to be in a game like that.
As a coach, how do you reset your players, right? It goes to an untimed 4 downs, hard 4, as you'd call it in the backyard of football, but where you play and you're the only objective you have really is that play clock. There's no game clock. But what was your message to your guys to alter their perspective and give it all for those 4 downs on each side of the ball?
Well, the great thing about it was, when you win the toss in overtime, the thing you want to do is you want to play defense first, so you'll know when you get on offense, what are you up against. If they don't score, all you've got to do is kick a field goal. If they kick a field goal, you need to to try and get 7 points. And also you want to get on your end of the field where your student section is. So I just want to give a shout out to the band. They were loud. We knew that we were going to get the help from them. But the big thing, with our players, just, we've been in this situation before where we've been on this end of the field. It comes down to one possession, but don't think about it. It's one possession. Don't think about it being overtime. Think about this particular play, and let's execute this play to the highest level. And, I felt like our guys did a good job of that.
So each week we highlight players who stood out not only in last week's game but throughout the season, their character, their leadership, who they are on and off the field. And this week we want to start with somebody who starts every single play on offense for the Spartans, and that's center Rocco Gray. And as we like to say, he sets every play in motion. So tell us a little bit about Rocco and what he was able to accomplish last week with the defensive front that Hueytown had was just tremendous. Mm-hmm. But the way that he and everybody to his right and to his left was able to sustain the pressure all night put on them by that Hueytown defensive line. Tell me a little bit about Rocco the player and Rocco the individual.
Well, Rocco has not only started, every game, but he started every game since he was a sophomore. He's got more starts under his belt than anybody on our team right now. And, we put a lot on his plate. Like he makes checks for us. There's probably not another center in the state of Alabama that checks, okay, what player are we going to, which side are we going to? So there's a lot on his plate. The other thing too is, Rocco's coming off a knee injury from basketball season. He's a basketball player, so he's a 2-sport athlete, and he's worked diligently to come back from that. Shows a lot of, resilience there. But the best thing is, everybody believes in Rocco. I've told everybody, if Rocco makes a bad call, then hey, we're going to follow Rocco into a bad call. And so he's a leader, and I think that he's the ultimate team player, and just has the trust of the players, staff, everybody.
You can't count experience out ever, and having more experience than any other guy in green on the field is a tremendous asset. Great guy, great family, and it's been awesome to see him progress throughout the years. I mean, the steadiness that he's able to play with week after week is consistent and impressive as well. We go to the opposite side of the ball and we look at Miller Lee, a guy who played middle linebacker and has had to play a little bit of middle linebacker this year due to injury, but kind of that rover position as well on defense. So talk about what he brings, because he's so versatile, but he's also can command the defense from any side of the ball. And so Miller, the number switch, he talked about switching from 35 to 11. Jahad Campbell, I think, was somebody he tries to play like, who was very successful for Alabama last year. But tell us a little bit about senior Miller Lee.
Well, he was a Mike linebacker, and then we moved him to a rover, which is really, in our defensive structure, he's really the master of all trades. I mean, he has to, rush off the edge. He has to drop, and so because of injuries, he's had to move back to Mike linebacker. But to me, the biggest thing about Miller is his willingness to do whatever it takes to help the team. He's a two-sport athlete as well. And was injured this last basketball season and did not get to dress out. But one of the things I'll never forget, Coach Andy Urban talking about was, he goes to a basketball game and a player slips on the floor and they have to mop it up, and it's Miller out there that's doing it, and everybody's talking about what a great, manager that is. He says, no, that's our starting Mike linebacker, and it's also one of our basketball players. And so, the bottom line is there's just nothing that's below Miller. He's just such a humble human being, and he's a servant, and, he has a huge impact on our team.
Wayne and I like to talk about, we've got a connection from him from Alpine Camp growing up. Wayne used to work there, and then Miller was a camper there, and we used to look down at Miller, right? I was a counselor when he was in probably second or third or fourth grade, and now we look up at Miller because physically he is that imposing big guy, multi-sport athlete, and just a great kid. We were talking in the training room earlier this week, and he's just a joy to be around.
Sure.
Great guy, always has a smile and a great attitude, but he steps on the field, puts on those pads, be mean as a snake and hit you right in the mouth. So appreciate you giving a nod to those two guys. Looking forward to see them lead both of their respective sides of the ball. And we turn our attention now to Pell City tonight. Whether you're listening and you're on I-20 headed east to the game tonight, or you're at home on the couch or on your vacation, taking in Spartan football just moments away from kickoff, we turn our eyes to the Panthers. This is region game number 1. So kind of a blank slate start. You take what you've learned in the first couple games and you apply it tonight. But you talk about stepping on the scale each week, and this is the first time that the numbers you see on the scale really matter. So what goes into this game, this Pell City team, and what do you want to take from the non-region games so far? We've got another one coming up in a couple weeks, but to build upon and start your playoff push tonight.
Well, the thing that we've talked about with our team, we stress a lot about the aggregation of marginal gains. And so what that is, it's small incremental gains over a long period of time. And so in every position, we've tried to take the smallest detail of our assignments, the smallest detail of the fundamental skills, whatever that is, and just refine it, perfect it. Well, to do that, you've got to get feedback from good competition. And so, a lot of times, when you have a big win or whatever, and it's lopsided in your favor, you sort of ignore some of the issues that you have, some of the mistakes that you have. But when you play someone and when it's a close game or you play them in a loss, you give a little bit more detail to those. But anyway, those are the things that we've really stressed. Trying to, every game, all we're doing, guys, the only thing that's on the line here is we're just extracting data. That's all we're doing. And now, it's a region game. So, the consequence of this is going to be, where, do you make the playoffs? Are you home or are you away? What's your bracket? And so, but at the same time, you can't be thinking about those things. You've got to take the information that you've got from those first opponents, and you've got to continue to refine that. And a lot of times, it's flatlined. You don't see a lot of results, but just, stick to your work, and then you'll see your improvement. And so, the team that we're about to play, very good football team. There's been some, they've made a decision a few years ago to try and really, really emphasize the improvement in their program. They made some coaching changes that resulted in a lot of chaos, at one time. And so now they've had a lot more stability, and you can tell from that stability the team is improving, the program's improving. It's is in a pretty good place right now. So it's going to be a good opponent for us, and it's going to be a good test for us.
On the note of improvement, we talked about guys filling gaps in your team and things like that. We won't go up and down who's injured, who's in, who's out, but you've seen a lot of guys step up and play different roles. We mentioned Miller kind of moving around, playing a little bit of middle linebacker this year. But talk about the guys overall. Your team, you've had a couple guys fill in this spot on whether it's the offensive line or the defensive secondary. And when you look at the ability and the willingness of those guys to step up, something I remember you talked about last year is your sophomores have to play like juniors, your juniors have to play like seniors, and your seniors have to play like super seniors. And I think I've seen that. I've commented to people all around the community about that. But is that something you see? Because those guys are filling in as if they belong in that starting spot, even if they're in the second rotation.
Well, that's one reason too, William, that we try to create, like we say, a culture of coaches, and so, there's only so many, we've got 10 guys on our staff, it's 20 sets of, it's 20 eyeballs on each one of our players, 10 sets of eyes. And so, if you have a culture of coaches, now your older players are coaching your younger players, and, it's a next man up mentality. If a player's not ready to go, then are we preparing somebody to step in and us not have a drop off as a team? And so to me, it's not just a good reflection of our staff and what they've done, but it's also a reflection of what our older players and our seasoned players have done in order to create a readiness for the younger players, which, you're exactly right.
I'm going to take that word seasoned and I'm going to turn that on its head a little bit, and I'm going to ask you about a group who is so special to Mountain Brook athletics and Mountain Brook football and the support that you receive. So I got a picture from a parent last week of the senior travel squad. They're this week's fans of the week, and they're an exceptional group of people. They don't just support Mountain Brook football. They don't just support Mountain Brook basketball or wrestling or track. They support all of Mountain Brook High School athletics. So this group of men has been around for quite some time. And what can you tell me about the senior travel squad from what you know about them, their long-standing support, and their long-standing love of Mountain Brook High School athletics?
Well, this is my 20th season as the head coach, and 27 is a football coach here at Mountain Brook, and they've been around as long as I can remember. They've been supportive as long as I can remember. And the thing I love about them, I think that there was something that's very unique to Mountain Brook. These guys, they enjoy the fellowship of one another around, the sports teams of Mountain Brook, and they get a great deal of joy from doing that, doing it together. I see them at other sporting events, and they'll cry out, and I get to visit with them, and so it's a very unique group. The other thing too is, they know the assistant coaches, they know the players, they know the ins and outs of our team, and I wonder sometimes how they do that, because they do have an intimate knowledge of our team, and they're very willing to, ask questions and whatnot. But anyway, it's an incredible group, and like I said, very unique to Mountain Brook.
And it shows the willingness and the support of not just folks when their kids are in elementary, junior high, or high school, or just recently graduated, but these folks have been around Mountain Brook athletics for decades and decades, and they continue to come to games and they continue to support, and that just shows how special this community is. The last word each week on this Coach Yeager playbook is presented by Reeves Construction, who's part of our pregame show sponsor. We appreciate Reeves Construction. Coach, I'm going to leave you with the last word, and after that, we're going to have a couple highlights from last week's overtime thriller. But we're excited about heading on the road to Pell City tonight. It's going to be a great atmosphere. It's going to be a great environment. However people are taking in Mountain Brook football in person or on the broadcast tonight, we're super excited, and I know you're ready to get out there and go to battle.
Sure. Well, one of the things, as I shared previously, last week when we're in overtime, and you get to choose, which end of the field do you want, to have the overtime. And so we intentionally chose our end of the field because we knew the kind of support that we were going to get. We knew the kind of reaction that we were going to get from our fans. And the thing that you want is, when we have the ball, we want that thing to be silent. When they have the ball, we want it to be really, really loud. And it was. But then the other thing too, and I think this is something that's pretty unique to Mountain Brook too. You were down there, you remember what the field was like after the game, and it just seemed like all of Mountain Brook came out on that field. The field was just covered with Mountain Brook people. And again, I think the fact that the people of Mountain Brook, and it wasn't just parents, and it wasn't just teachers, and it wasn't just students and friends. It just seemed like it was all the citizens from Mountain Brook, and it was just, that's a special thing. And I'll just say this to the people out there that's listening to us: if you've never had a chance to take part in that, after a game, it's pretty special to linger on the field, be with our coaches and our players, and please feel free anytime to come be a part of that, because it's a very special time, and to me it's something that, again, it's special to Mountain Brook and unique to Mountain Brook.
And the beauty of that in high school sports is Andy Urban doesn't have to pay a $50,000 fine for us storming the field. It's a pretty peaceful takeover. Yeah. But anyways, what we like to do on the field is be violent and knock our people over, and then peacefully come onto the field and enjoy the fruits of our labor.
Yeah, and the other thing too, though, that Andy Urban would probably appreciate, if you have children and you just want them to have something to do during the game, feel free to come down to the end zone and play touch football.
We're going to cut this part out. All right, here's some highlights, everybody. Let's go beat Pell City tonight.
Yeah, as the Wizard of Oz says, there's no place like home, and here we are back in the friendly confines of Spartan Stadium.
We'll tell you a little bit about the Mountain Brook offense and numbers-wise after this play right here. Hoffbauer on the keeper, coming near side, plenty of space, plenty of green, rolling,
be fast,
going, and into the goal of the end zone. Caden Hoffbauer strikes first for the Spartans, and Mountain Brook puts 6 up real fast on their first drive.
I will say, Gabe looked at me and said, "Hey, Wayne, I went 2 for 2 in warm-ups, talking about catches," and I asked him, "How many passes got thrown your way?"
He said 2, and there goes John Colvin making a move and making a hit, delivering the boom. John Colvin down to the 30. What a return from the junior.
Well, I tell you what, you don't always want to shake and bake Jesus, but I kind of wish we did right there. We decided to truck him, taking off his helmet. He's going to have to come out for the next play.
And the Spartans have an opportunity here on 3rd and goal in this overtime contest. Hoffbauer rolling to his left, fakes a give, throws to the end zone.
Got it!
Caught! Touchdown Spartans! Mountain Brook wins it in overtime. Complete. Mountain Brook takes down Hueytown in an overtime thriller.
And it is a Sam Smith send-off here for the Spartans.
Who do you go to when you need a big play? Call 1-800-SAM-SMITH. The senior wide receiver for the Spartans answers the bell. A dime from Caden Hoffbauer, and Mountain Brook is rolling in 2-1 and a big overtime victory over the Golden Gophers tonight.